Hello everybody. Hello everybody. Contrary to popular belief, I do not say yes to simply every vehicle which is offered to me. These days, I simply don't have the time to review absolutely everything that I would like, let alone everything that I get offered. However, today I am driving something that on the face of it appears to be, well, rather ordinary, but believe me, it is far from that. Looking at this car, you might simply think it's just an old BMW X5 with a silly body kit tacked onto it and some horrible tasteless wheels. Well, that's partly true, but it's not just any old body kit. I've never actually driven an X5 of any type before, but when I got offered a go at this one, I just had to do it. You see, this is a 2003 BMW X5 Hartge. It is one of, we believe, only two ever made in right-hand drive. This car was supplied new to its first owner, Carlos, a Venezuelan oil magnate, back in 2003. The base price of this car as new was about £40,000. It was supplied direct from BMW to Birds, the well-known outfit here in the UK who specialise in modifying these lovely Bavarian beasties. Birds then added the sum total of £35,000 to this car's asking price. How did they do that? Well, the big star is up front. This is a proper old school tuner car. Hartge take the standard 4.4 litre BMW V8 and turn it into a 5 litre lump. This is serious old school engine work. The bore is different, the stroke is different, the compression ratio is different. They also have a very tasty but well-judged exhaust system, the aforementioned body kit and the wheels, which way back when cost about £6,000. So you are looking at an X5 which 16 years ago cost its owner £75,000. Now I suppose in this age of £150,000 Range Rover SVRs on every street corner in London, £75,000 doesn't sound like an awful lot. But if I was going to put that into context for you, a BMW 760 Li, much like the one that I currently own, would have cost you at the time about 80 something. So this was a pretty serious car. That engine is mated to the standard auto gearbox, a 5-speed unit it would appear, and not the latest 6-speed that was used in many other BMW vehicles. That's a little bit of a shame. Stepping into this thing is really quite odd for me. It's a bit of a nostalgia trip really, because so much of this feels just like an E46. There is an aftermarket and not very good stereo here which is going to be replaced, but the rest of it all feels very, very familiar. And I have to say something, for a 16-year-old car, this feels like a really quality product. My family had the misfortune to buy a Mercedes ML back when it was new, and that is without a doubt one of the worst cars ever made. It is shockingly bad. If you need any proof, when's the last time you saw a first generation ML on the road? Exactly. Now BMW, I suppose, were a little bit ahead of their time. Back then, not a lot of people made kind of off-road looking vehicles that really weren't designed to go off-road. But they saw the trend coming, and the X5 really was one of the first cars to be designed from the ground up to appeal to that new market. I suppose it was the sort of next step on from the yuppie market that grew in the 80s and 90s. These days, this thing actually looks pretty subtle. It's not really that big. It's quite tall, as evidenced by the Land Rover Disco I've just driven past, which looks fairly small in comparison, but it's actually a very nice thing. Got a real heft to the steering, much like my old E46. I cannot imagine BMW making a car with this kind of steering these days. It doesn't actually feel that gaudy or chintzy in here, and the Oxford green paintwork is actually quite tasteful. The black Dakota leather in here is pretty nice. It's not overly fancy, and a few bits do feel a little bit on the cheap side, but everything is just solid, real proper old school BMW. It's also got the sort of pull and throttle response that you can only get from a fairly large, naturally aspirated engine. I really do miss these old V8 lumps quite a bit. Yes, I know they're thirsty as hell, but my word, they're special. Now, this car's owner is a bit of a legend. He bought it because he was told to go and get a nice, sensible, practical family car to cart the kid around in. This is what he bought. Now, I can tell you that this vehicle, perhaps unsurprisingly, has depreciated quite a bit from its original £75,000 list price. However, if you want to buy one of these, good luck. This one is not going anywhere anytime soon, and the only other example we know of, being in white, has disappeared. There is one other Hartge X5 of note out there, but I'm not actually sure if it was ever made, so if there's any BMW anoraks that know, I would appreciate if you could tell me. I found an old advertisement from Birds for an X5 with the S62 lump in it, the 5-litre V8 from the E39 M5, but I'm not sure anyone actually bought one, so I'd like to know. One piece of spec which is missing from this car, and is a bit of a sad omission, is a sunroof. In this era of BMW, if you bought a top spec car, say a M3, something like that, a sunroof was usually standard and you had to actively get rid of it. So perhaps it was deleted on this car, or perhaps it was never an option, but it would just add quite a bit of light and airiness to this cabin, which I could do with a little bit of it. The car certainly picks up, and although it is riding on those pretty awful 22-inch split rim alloys, it's actually not that horrendous. With a set of sensible alloys on here, I think it might actually be comfortable, and for a fairly sporty SUV, that's pretty impressive. Another thing that surprised me that I simply never realised or knew is the fact this has a nice split tailgate, very Range Rover-esque. And normal X5s can be had now for, well, basically nothing. And there's some good reasons for that. They are very thirsty to feed. They do have a habit of braking. When they do so, they can be kind of expensive. But if you get a decent one, they will last well, and, well, really quite nice cars apparently. But I know what you guys want. You want to hear more of that sonorous V8, and I am happy to oblige. I genuinely can really see why this car's owner has fallen for it. It is, for the price paid, which is a 4-figure sum, just so much motor. And actually the rest of the car can pretty much keep up. You've got to remember it is still a big old barge, but you know what? For driving around these sorts of roads, which is what it's for, it's really, really well suited. It's just such a special thing. That exhaust is perfect. It's not silly, it's not super shouty, it doesn't crack and pop and do all the crazy stuff modern things do. It's just right. Genuinely, it's just the wheels and the front which are a little bit gaudy. The rest of it, it's a package that actually really, really works. And I suppose when it came out, it did just look like the most ridiculous, showy, unnecessary thing. But actually now, if you were to say to someone, oh, we'll do a sort of fairly small-sized SUV with 380 horsepower in it, they'd be like, oh, that's not a lot, is it really? But there is something about this engine that is rather remarkable. I've driven plenty of BMWs with the standard 4.4 in them, and this is definitely something a little bit more. The brakes on the car actually do work quite well, although if you look at simply the size of them versus the size of the car, I wouldn't take it on track, put it that way. But for daily duty, it seems to work quite well. previous naturally aspirated engines, the throttle response is just so good. And actually it does go a hell of a long way to making up for a dim-witted and slow auto box. It is quite incredible. I'm not a fan of old torque converter autos at all, but when you pair them with an engine like this, oh, it does actually move. Oh, it's really a vent, this car. Really, really is. And it's only on 53,000 miles. With the extensive history folder that it's got, I have absolutely no doubt whatsoever that it probably is going to go on for quite some time. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this little look at a real weird curio. If you've got anything like this, or indeed anything of interest, please don't hesitate to get in touch. My details will be in the description down below, as per usual. Thanks very much for watching. Please like, comment below, subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you for the next one. Ta-da!